All right. What do you guys want to start with? I'll give you some options. All right. Option A, a Charlie story. Give me a chance for option B. Jeremiah. You guys, you guys are all going to get reformed when you get to heaven. You're going to get real. Exodus. Well, we're going to get to all of them. How do you want to start? You wonder if someone gave you the option, deal with reality or deny reality, which would you pick? Deal with it? It's easy to answer. You say, well, you have to, but isn't it true? Isn't it true that human nature is you want to deny some reality? You want to push it off? You want to sort of act like it's not there? And so reality is something that we have to learn to deal with. Wasn't this in a movie, the red pill or the blue pill? Somebody? Movie buffs out there? Which one was reality? The red pill? The blue pill? You get to choose. And one is to continue to deny how things really are, and one is to deal with it. And when you deal with it, oh boy, there's some wake-ups that have to happen. And so today I want to talk to you about dealing with the reality, but I also want to tie together the last 4 months of Orchard Grove. So if you've been paying attention, this is all review. I don't expect you to remember, but here's what I'd like to say. Reality of life has a pattern to it. A pattern. I'm going to simplify the pattern real quick. Life is good. Everybody say life is good. 1, 2, 3. Life is good. Have you seen the t-shirt? Have you seen the bumper sticker? Life's good. Life's good. For Charlie, life is good. Sometimes she doesn't even know how good it is, but it's good, right? Life is good. We call that childhood. We call that innocence. We call that the Garden of Eden. Life is good. The garden. Everything's good. Everything's okay. Somewhere along the line, another thing happens. It goes from life is good to life is tough. Life is difficult. Life is challenging. Has anybody hit one of these patches before in life? All right? If you're over 40 and you didn't raise your hand, you're probably lying or in denial. Right? So life is good. It's our childhood. It's the love that we have with our childhood memories. Who's ever done this before? You have this idealized childhood. Literally, if you go back to where you grew up, you feel certain feelings. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? I go to Flint, Michigan, and I get the warm and fuzzies. What's that about? Nobody gets the warm and fuzzies in Flint, Michigan, because there's something about it. You go, this is where I grew up. This is my child. And there's something special about your childhood. Is this true? I go to my grandma's house. You guys hear me tell countless stories about grandma. Why? Because I have this idealized, innocent notion, this first naivete, they call it, where everything's perfect there. She had raspberry bushes. We went out and picked raspberries. She put cream in the raspberries and sugar, and it just doesn't get any better than Grandma's house. Out back, I would tell everybody about her hut, this incredible fortress that my grandpa built that ascended into the sky, higher than the Tower of Babel itself, right? And then when you go out there, it's just about this high, and it's pretty small, and it's filled with spiders, and it's pretty. But in your mind, the childhood thing. And I think what's helpful for us is if we realize that life has this pattern or these rhythms, and if we're alert to them and we're awake to them, it helps us. And here, this is so important. Because somewhere along the line, you're gonna run into this rough patch, and you're going to know, oh, this is normal. This was to be expected. So Charlie's story. This week we started her at the daycare, you know, first drop off at the daycare. Now, truthfully, we tried it in the summer for a day, and she wasn't ready for it. You can read between the lines that Dad wasn't ready for it, but don't judge, you know. And so we dropped her off, and she was hysterical, and Vicky's like, no, it's okay, that's what they do. And I'm like, no. And so she was sobbing, and I was sobbing, and we were supposed to pick her up at like 3 in the afternoon, and we got there at 11:30, picked her up. And so obviously, Dad wasn't ready for it in the summer. I don't know if Charlie was, but this week we did take her in, and there's a pattern. Here's the pattern. She wakes up, life is good. Life's good. What do you want for breakfast? Yogurt. We eat yogurt. We sing songs. We sing Baby Shark for the 1 millionth time. Baby Shark. We do the motions to baby. Everything's good. We get in the car. You want to go for a ride? Okay. We go for a ride. And then we pull into the school. We point out the school bus because she loves school buses. That's good. And then we get to where the handoff happens. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? The immediate transformation, hysteria breaks out, and they assure me that I'm going to be okay. I mean, that Charlie's going to be okay. And she goes back, and they have pictures they send you throughout the day. And here's what happens. It's good, it's tough, and then we come back and pick her up, and it's what? It's good again. And if I had a video screen here, I'd show you the video of her sprinting, because you can hear her down the hall saying, you know, Mama's here, Daddy's here, sprinting, making the curve, and Mama, Dada. And life is good again. Maybe this little simple example will help us understand something. This is the great pattern of life. The ancients called it the wisdom pattern. The pattern of wisdom. Let's say it together. The pattern of wisdom. If you're young, you don't get this. Because here's how you think life is going to go when you're young. Here's how you think it's going to go. And by the way, you paid good money to go to a seminar to get this reinforced. Who's ever had this lie reinforced at a seminar? Here's how life is. Be a good person, you take care of everything, and you're here, and then you're going to go to here. And then you keep doing everything right, and you keep getting good grades, and you keep smiling and then it goes to here. And life is just this beautiful arc upward. What's the reality? The reality is it goes like this, and then it goes like this, and then it goes like this, and then it goes like this. And if you knew that, if you were told that, if you were taught that, how much easier it would be to handle, and you'd be less surprised. That's why in 1 Peter it says, don't be surprised at the suffering. Suffering is never something we should be surprised at, but suffering is just a part of the program. Now, I know I'm going to get asked why, because that's pretty much what you do as a pastor. You spend your lifetime trying to answer that question for people. That's pretty much all you do. Because the only thing people really want to know is, why am I suffering? Why would God allow it? Did I do something wrong? What's wrong with God? What's wrong with my husband? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why am I suffering? And these are good questions. And one way I would answer it is, why did you take Charlie there? If it caused her to cry, which is the question you ask yourself, Dad, that's so mean. But eventually, you know, she's got to, what? Grow. She's got to grow. She's got to experience different people and different things and different environments. She's got to be challenged. And you don't want to do it in a traumatic way. Of course. But here's the reality. The reality is this pattern helps us grow. Let's go to the big pattern. Exodus chapter 1. God's people are there. They're all actually Joseph's offspring. They're Joseph's family at this point. And it says in Exodus 1 that they're fruitful, they're multiplying, and everything is going well. You get it's the life is good. But then it says a new Pharaoh came who didn't know Joseph. And he started to get threatened, and he said, hey, these Israelites, I'm not so sure that they're really safe. Maybe we should be harsh on them. And so the persecution on the Israelites begins, and it says they're oppressed, and they become bitter. And all of a sudden, a great pattern emerges. Now, you know the story. Eventually, God takes them out through these miracles, through the plagues, and they go out through the Red Sea, and then they go through a great period of wandering in the wilderness. You know the story, right? And they end up in the promised land. Now, let's do the 3 parts. They're fruitful, things are going well, they're in Egypt. It's good. And then there comes slavery and oppression, and then the journey out, and there's wandering in the wilderness, and then there is the promised land. Now, here's the thing. The question that we all have is, God, why don't you just give people helicopter rides from Egypt to the promised land? Pretty much most of our prayers are about helicopter rides, aren't they? Most of our prayers are, God, if you could just extract our family, lift us up, take us to the promised land, get us where we want. But see, this is missing the point entirely, because the point is not different location. The point of the story is not God changing where we live. The point of the story is God changing who we are. If you read in any depth to the story, you read that the wandering was all about changing God's people so that they were ready to inherit the promised land. Wouldn't we love to skip steps? Don't we love, just a helicopter over things? One of the things that I've seen as a trend, because I'm not so as young as I used to be pastoring, is I see a continuing trend. Here's one of the trends. The trend is towards less and less acknowledgement of grief. It happens at funerals all the time. I do funerals all the time, and the language is changing. Let's not call it a funeral. Let's call it a celebration of life. Let's. Now, I'm not accusing anybody, so don't get mad. Don't throw. Just listen to the picture here. You go to have the body put into the ground. A lot of people don't go anymore. It used to be everybody went. You say, well, Chris, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just, listen. And then when you get there for the body to be lowered into the ground, there's dirt. And people go to have a little ceremony, but all the dirt's covered with AstroTurf. And then if they do say a quick prayer, no one stays around, or it's highly discouraged that you stay around to watch the body go into the ground, let alone dirt being pushed on top of it. It's sort of like, let's say a quick prayer, let's get some food. Let's not grieve. I don't know. Call me stupid. Aren't we trying to paint over something? Aren't we trying to deny reality rather than deal with reality? That death is a part of it all? Why not let us put dirt in our hands? Scoop it up with our own hands and place it on the casket like they used to do. We don't want to get any dirt on our hands before we eat. I'm not moralizing about it or trying to say this is a right or wrong way to do a funeral. What I'm saying is I'm noticing a trend. And I think the trend is let's cover up all the ugly stuff as if it's not a part of life. Let's take the other pill so we don't have to deal with this very painful reality. But I think the only way to grow, let me say again, the only way to grow is that you eventually have to deal with it. Life is good, and then life is tough. And there's a third part. Life is great. The funny thing is when you get to life is great, it's not that you don't have any problems. They don't go away. The problem is people think about it's being moved to a place where now problems, it's just you have wisdom now. Now you have wisdom. Anybody know a wise person? please, you know what? They just handle it differently. They're usually not 14. Are you with me? That's just not doable. Now, honest to God, here's an interesting thing. If you've seen a kid with cancer or some young child that suffered unbelievably, it's amazing how wise a young person can be in those kinds of circumstances. But the reality is, wisdom takes time. Wisdom takes experience. All right, you want to learn something? Just for grins. Not really. Bring on Dale. All right, all right, okay. We'll learn one thing. All right, we'll learn one thing, just for grins. All right. In Jesus' day, he was Jewish, and they had the scriptures, and their scriptures were, we divide our scriptures into two parts, Christians today. Old Testament and, all right, I don't need to educate you there, do I? But if you were Jewish, and in those days, they divided their section, which we call the Old Testament, but they called their scriptures, into three parts. Ready? The law, the prophets, and the writings. The law, let's say it together. Ready? The law, and then the writings. You learn something. In those days, they call it the Tanakh. It's an acronym. Torah, right? Nevi'im, Ketuvim. I won't make you do that one. Tanakh. But say Tanakh. 1, 2, 3. The Tanakh. Tanakh. T-N-K. Tanakh. Everybody knew this in those days. There were three parts. The law. What's the law? Structure. Right? Who has rules in your house? Who has rules? Who has no rules? Okay, you have some rules. They're just rules. It just helps us. Rules help us. Now, do rules get out of hand? Yes. Do rules get sometimes need to be broken? Yes. Are there exceptions? Yes, yes, yes. But let's not get there. You just start with basic rules. Basic rules, right? Like, clean up after yourself. Because you want order in your house. Who likes a little bit of order? Or who just likes jelly strewn everywhere? No matter if you sit in jelly. Who cares if you sit in jelly? No, you want order. Law. Order. Law. Tanakh. T. Torah. Life starts with order. You give order to kids. You give structure to kids. You give rules to kids. And then the middle part, you're learning the whole Bible today. The middle part are the prophets. The prophets come along and they tell them what's wrong with the law, what's wrong with the order, because it's good, but there are problems with it. And so they make it messy. They critique it. We've done this before. We've talked about this, You don't need sacrifice. You need compassion, they'd say. They would say, your religious ceremonies, they're wearing God out. That's what the prophets would say. So they stirred it up. Now, when you have the law, you have comfort because you have predictability. Then you have the prophets, and you go, yeah, but if you say that that's out, the next thing's going to, who knows where this is going to end? It's uncomfortable. Are you getting it with so far? Then it moves into the writings, or as we've been studying for 4 months, wisdom literature. Wisdom. And wisdom comes through both of those and can handle the paradox, can handle the fact that you have to have structure, you have to have law, you have to have order, but you need prophetic types, you need people to challenge the process, and then you need to kind of come through it with grace. The law, and then the prophets, and then wisdom. Think about this. This is a universal pattern. There's an interesting psalm, Psalm 42. There's a line in there in the middle where it says, deep cries to deep. And I've been thinking about that all week because I think the cry that I hear is for depth. I think what people are crying for is something deeper. Because when your problems are deep, the answers need to be deep. Perhaps what I'm saying is there's too much shallow searching for deep problems. Too many shallow answers for much deeper problems. Wisdom is about depth. Deep calls to deep. I want to read Psalm 42 and see if it resonates with you thousands of years later. My soul is dry and thirsts for you, true God, as a deer thirsts for water. I long for the true God who lives. When can I stand before him and feel his comfort? Right now, I'm overwhelmed by my sorrow and pain. I can't stop feasting on my tears. People crowd around me and say, "Where is your true God, whom you claim will save?" With a broken heart, I remember times before when I was with your people. Those were better days. He's remembering when they used to be able to gather together. Those were better days. I used to lead them happily into the true God's house, singing with joy, shouts of thanksgiving, joining in the congregation in the celebration. Why am I so overwrought? Why am I so disturbed? Why can't I just hope in God? Despite all my emotions, I will believe and praise the one who saves me and is my life. My God, my soul is so traumatized. The only help is remembering you wherever I may be. Now think about this. In Proverbs, about I think the second chapter, the writer personifies wisdom. He says, wisdom is out in the streets begging you to listen to her. It's like she's holding up a sign in the streets saying, I offer myself to you. But no one will listen. And calamity takes over. I recognize I'm not giving you 3 simple steps to an amazing life today, but you've already had those sermons. You've already been to those seminars. This is the other pill. It's not a downer, by the way, because there's always a third step. And if you've been through it and you've had a glimpse of wisdom, you've had a glimpse of it's okay, if you've had a whiff of the promised land, you know it's okay. The third step is the promised land. What's the symbol of the promised land? Abundance. The spies go in to check out the land, and when they go to check out the land, they come back and they're carrying these massive grapes. And they said, oh, it's exceedingly good. But even then, it's difficult. You see, life is not about getting to a place where you never have to deal with any difficulty, but life is becoming the kind of person that knows the difficulty is a part of it all. And human nature is that we will avoid that at all costs. So I'll rewind the clock for you 4 months ago. Maybe it's 5 now. When he introduced you to Peter, Jesus says, on this rock I'm going to build my church. And that's a part that gets quoted all the time. The part that perhaps gets missed when Jesus tells Peter he's going to die and be raised again. What does Peter say? Man, great idea. They'll probably make crosses and people will wear them and that'll be the symbol of your... Is that what Peter says? Peter goes, that's a bad idea, bro. That's a bad idea. We got a good thing going here. And we ought to keep it going. I don't think we should put death in there, you know. And Jesus says, this is the way. This is the way. Nobody picks the cross. Nobody picks losing. Nobody picks sacrifice. Nobody picks suffering. It just comes back to this. The red pill or the blue pill? Do you deny reality or do you deal with it? Wise people raise wise children, and they teach their children, this will be reality too. So they're not surprised when they suffer. I want to close, ask you to think about this, your own life. It's okay. It's okay. You know why I love talking to my grandma and about my grandma? I talked to her after the pandemic hit. What did she say? The end is near. She goes, it's okay, we'll get through it, honey. That's it. We've been through a lot of stuff. Well, I guess if you've been through the Great Depression and World War II and you name every war after that, then you have a sense of wisdom. But here are the kind of things that we say when we're entering stage 2, disorder. What's wrong with the world? You said that lately? What's wrong with people? Meaning other people. I don't understand why. I didn't think my life was going to be like this. We move from predictability and comfort, structure and system, law, Torah, to disruption, discomfort, unease, questions. But you go through that to get to wisdom, which is peace, paradise, trust, ketuvim. This is the pattern. Anyone here been baptized? Same pattern. You're upright. Everything's in order. You go down into the watery chaos. It's disorder. But you come out again. Oh, I love being a part of baptisms. People come out with tears. Amazing things happen. The watery chaos, I mean, some people you can tell they're afraid of water. They struggle. Huh? Remember the purple pool we have in here? I watch people struggling not to go all the way down because they're afraid, and Pastor Bright just shoving their head down. We do what we can here. It's the same pattern. 1, 2, 3. And then it just goes around and around and around. And the question is why? Why doesn't God just take me from here to here? And the reason is because God wants to change what? Now, every person that's honest can tell you, you and I became a different person when I went through that. And there's no way of educating that. That's experience only. All right, let's stand. We'll have a closing prayer together. Dale, are you going to do another song? 2 more, 3 more. Love it. Do as many as you can. Oh, we're going to go greet everyone. Here's what I'd like you to do. Everyone online, thank you for joining us, being a part today. Everyone on the lawn, I'm going to say a prayer. If you'll stay, Vicki and I, Charlie, we're going to go over there because if you'd like to, we'd love to say hi to you if we haven't had a chance, all right? And then when the song's over, we can bolt. Dear Lord, thank you for your love for us. Thank you for showing us the way, the death, the burial, and the resurrection. The 1, the 2, and the 3. The law, the prophets, and then the wisdom. The order, the chaos, and then the reorder. God, give us the wisdom to embrace it. In Christ's name, amen.